Hi, Mark. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, good to meet you.
Yeah, lovely to meet you too. Where are you coming to us from today?
So I'm in Chamonix today, looking out at Mont Blanc, so quite a long way from any saltwater, open water anyway. Yeah, in Chamonix in France.
Yeah. Is there any pools or open water swimming up there? Any lakes that you can swim in? Obviously
Uh,
not in winter.
well, people do. I mean, ice swimming is taking off big time, right? So there's actually quite a lot of people swimming in the winter. Actually, I'm based most of the time in Lausanne in Switzerland, which is an hour away. Obviously, we have Lake Geneva, 100, whatever it is, 100 miles around it. So it's a big lake, and people do swim all year. Obviously, less and less time as the temperature drops to about 5 degrees in the lake in winter. But in the summer, I mean, literally 3 weeks ago, it was still 22 degrees in the lake. So that's
Wow.
pretty good swimming temperature for 4 or 5 months. And we're really blessed in Lausanne in particular. We're really blessed with open air 50-meter pools. I mean, like Australia, you have a lot as well, but there are very few countries that have that. And I think within half an hour of where I live near Lausanne, we have 7 50-meter outdoor pools, but they're only open for May, September,
Yes.
mid-May, mid-September. But it's fantastic. And fortunately, we've got a big new 50-meter indoor pool in Lausanne as well that opened last year. Lausanne's the home of the Olympic Committee, right? So it should be well sort of supported, but it wasn't until then. So really spoiled, to be honest. Lots of great pools, and the lakes are good for open water swimming as well. There's also some rivers and some smaller mountain lakes. We're well served. And then in France, next door, it's not too bad. Chamonix and Megève, we have good pools and incredible mountain lakes for those who want to go and do more extreme things. And more people are doing the cold water thing. And not personally, it's not my thing, but I can see that's an interesting trend as well. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. I think it really took off during COVID when people couldn't get into pools. And I know here in Australia, it was the middle of winter when we were in COVID lockdown, and we were swimming in Port Phillip Bay, which is in sort of the bay that goes around Melbourne. And it was 9 degrees. Very
I
cold.
follow quite a few people on Strava that are swimming in Port Phillip Bay. Actually, I think people that have joined the UltraSwim Strava club that we've got, and then I've been following them, so I can see people swimming in all sorts of different temperatures all over the world, and also quite often I know the Port Phillip one also about water quality. People alerting people when it's good and when it's not and stuff, which is a bit sad in some ways, but at least it's good information.
Yeah,
a way to share with people. So we're really really sport here. I mean, I'm British and I grew up in the UK. Someone asked me the other day, would you ever go back to live in the UK? I haven't lived there for 20 years, and officially for about 14. But I actually said, there's one reason I wouldn't go back. Just the swimming pools. I mean, it's post-COVID, it's got even crazy there because you have to book slots at most pools, but 45 minutes. Actually, equipment. I mean, it's all, and they're almost all just 25-meter pools. So, and I've got so used to my wife saying, "Are you kidding me? Is that the only reason you wouldn't go back?" Well, it's a pretty big one. I mean, to be honest, I need my it's my meditative time. It's my brain food is a swim, not every day, but certainly 3, 4, 5 times a week. So that's a good reason not to go. There are plenty of other reasons, but the weather and other things, but that was actually the top of my list. So
yeah, I hear you. I agree. I lived there for a year as well, and I very rarely found a pool, and I could only go at night time, and it was hard to get into. That was a long 30 years ago or something, but yeah.
Despite that, though, I mean, it's probably the most per head of population, the most vibrant swimming community. Maybe Australia is perhaps similar, but in the world, I think, because people do swim. They do swim outdoors. They do swim. There's lidos that stay open, and the water gets colder, and they push themselves through these indoor pools. I mean, they're crowded. So and I know from our new event that the UK population is a very motivated open water swimming population of all kinds, from wild swimming to dipping in the winter through to doing events and everything else. It's an incredibly vibrant open water, the most vibrant open water community I think in the world per head of population.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
I think a third of our swimmers in Montenegro at the first full UltraSwim 33.3 were from UK. 35%,
Wow.
I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Followed by the French. So
yes. Okay. Well, we need to start talking about the UltraSwim. So what inspired you to create it, and what is the UltraSwim 33.3 for those people out there who haven't heard of it.
Yeah, so the sporting aspect of it is it's 33.3 kilometers, which is the shortest theoretical distance across the English Channel if you were to swim it in a perfectly straight line with no tide, which is obviously quite tricky to do. But spread over 4 days in 5, 6, 7 swims, but over 4 days. So you're doing that distance, but it's broken up and it's in a race. It's in a race format in the sense it's timed. There is a cutoff time, but very, very open and accessible to all levels. So we had swimmers from 2 kilometers an hour to near to 5 kilometers an hour with Andy Donaldson swimming. So complete range. But yeah, it's quite a tough event. I mean, the concept for me, the core of the concept is it's multi-day. In 2011, with my old company, I co-founded a cycling event called the Route, which is a 7-day amateur, pro-am or amateur cycling race. And at that time, cycling is just like swimming right now. Lots of one-day events all over the world in cycling in 2011 and now. One-day cyclosportives, amateurs come and they race, put inverted commas, race, but they're racing in different levels. And there were lots of holidays at that time, 1 week cycling holidays across the Alps, across the Pyrenees, across the different mountain ranges in particular. And swimming, and we created the Route, and we created a format that was across those mountains in a week, but there was in a race format, and that that was been an amazing event. Ironman actually bought it from one of the shareholders in my old company a couple of years ago, and it's 10 or 12 years on. I mean, absolutely amazing. And what I saw in that was the impact of multi-day, where yes, you arrive, unlike a one-day event where you arrive, you might meet some people at a hotel. You might see some people on the start line, you finish, most people disappear off quite quickly, and there's no real community formed at the event. In multi-day, you kind of suffer a bit together. You get up early again the next morning, you suffer again, you meet more and more people as it goes on, and you pull each other, to a finish line, a tough finish line. Your multi-day is hard, very different physically and mentally to a one-day event. You've got to pace yourself perhaps a bit, you've got to get up again, you've got to manage yourself, recovery, everything else. But all of that creates this incredible bond. So I wanted to put that concept that we created put in the Route cycling into swimming. And in swimming, there's only really a couple of multi-day open water events. The SCAR in the States, which is 4 days, very brutal. I think it's skins only. I think it's cold water, and you have to drive quite a few hours between the days. So it's, amazing event. At some point I'll try and do it myself, perhaps, but it's interesting. And something called the Morocco Swim Trek in Dakhla, which is a kite surf spot in southern Morocco, which I've swam a few times. And Edith Molyneux created that. It's a lovely little event, and I've swam that a few times. It's quite out there. You're in the desert. You're in tents and different things, and it's it's quite an adventure. And I enjoyed that, but it wasn't necessarily the format and at the level kind of premium wise that I wanted to try and create an event. But I was still a big supporter of that event in Morocco, and I'll go and swim it. So the one event I'm going to keep swimming. Because I can't swim my own events, unfortunately. But a bit too complex to swim as well as organise. So I thought, I want to pull. There's definitely a space there. There's definitely I think a community of people that come from lots of different subgroups. So triathletes, swim runners, pure open water swimmers, pool swimmers looking to go into open water, someone wishing to do their first 10K. We include a marathon swimming on the day 3. It builds up to the day 3 marathon swim. All sorts of different people, but primarily this multi-day side of things, which transforms the experience. The difficulty with that as an organizer is you then don't just own the 3 hours of the swim or the, in terms of having to deliver, you've got the entire, in our case, 4 days, long weekend, which is the idea that it's a long weekend, not necessarily a full week for those that are time short, if you live nearby, is to put the whole thing in a way that's easy to access, appeals to all these different communities in different ways, but actually brings all those people together. So I've never written it as a community event, but everybody at the event, the first full event we did a test event in 2022 for 25 swimmers, then we had 120 swimmers a few weeks ago in Montenegro. Everybody, the feedback is amazing on lots of different areas, but it's and there's plenty to improve without a doubt. There always is. But the main feedback was, what you've got is a phenomenal community event. You just brought all these people together to the point where people opening up about, big life traumas and things. Not everybody has big, but incredible at the end. Just people sharing on the swimmer WhatsApp group, what it meant to them to have nailed this 33.3.
That's really interesting.
Tragedy and trauma, and this is their comeback moment, what they promised the loved one that they'd lost, or incredible emotion, and that's the impact. Trying to create an event where it's uncomfortable when you enter for most people, in that I'm going to have to get out of bed and train a bit for this. 3 months ahead or 6 months ahead. So hard enough when you get there. Question mark if can you do it? Can you do 4 days in a row? Because very few people have actually done that kind of event. And what how am I going to deal with it? Am I fast enough for for one set of people, or can I stay with the fast guys for another set of people, or just how am I going to get through this? So it's uncomfortable, yet people take it on, and the majority make it to the finish line. Some people don't make the finish every day for lots of different reasons, but they want to come back and nail it the next time. So I think we managed to pitch it right so that it's tough mentally and it's tough, definitely tough physically, whatever speed you're swimming at, whatever level you're trying to do it at, but accessible. And that the diversity, what came out in Montenegro, the diversity of people was just extraordinary. People from 24 countries, that's one aspect, but we had all shapes and sizes. There are people with we got Andy, who's done both events now, cerebral palsy. He struggles to walk on land, but he's great in the water. We got different people with mobility issues, people that are fast, slow, never done open water, never swam in salt water, never swam in a pool for some people. All sorts of different things, and yet we're all in this big kind of family, and they're all helping each other across the finish line at whatever level. And it was extraordinary for that. Everything I hoped and a bit more.
That's great. And was it an equal split between sort of men and women, or did you have one more than the other?
Yeah, 42% women, I think so. Pretty well split, to be honest. And then we allow, obviously we've got a wetsuit category and a skins category. I'm not a believer. I have nothing against the tradition rules. I did a rot nest. They took my watch off me on the start line because I hadn't read that bit in the rules, and when you're in your speedos or whatever. I'm not a believer that that's necessary to be as part of the new open water swimming market, because I can see that people being able to swim in wetsuits, for example, is a big catalyst for growth and for getting people in. And then, like me, progressively, I ended up swimming with wetsuits until I did rot nest, and again 3 months before I realised you weren't allowed to wear a wetsuit. And so that for me, I don't want to follow traditional rules, but actually we want to encompass all of those different people. So we have a skins and wetsuit category, which was in the end, I think, in terms of people who swam at least one day in a wetsuit, because they ended up in the wetsuit category, it was about half at the finish, but more people wanted to start with skins. But we have warm water this year. The water was 23 degrees, which
that's quite warm.
Is normal.
Yeah. Will you sorry, I was going to ask about the breakup of the 33.3. So tell us sort of what the schedule was over the 4 days, like how many swims on each day, and how far were they?
I say it'll be different venue to venue. The core thing we're trying to do is we call it an adventure swim, because we are trying to go point to point. So we hate laps. Right. Everything to avoid laps. Doesn't mean we can avoid them completely. In the test event, we had one day where we just couldn't do the route we planned because the route was just too rough for the kayaks even to follow. So and so we had to do 3 2.5k laps around some marks, again a bit in a wild area, but nonetheless. So we tried to avoid that. So it's point to point. The idea is to go around. In the case of Montenegro, it's to go around something called Listicia Peninsula. In Croatia next May, it's to go from 12th century village called Starigrad, go around an island, around one end of an island, to finish in Var town. So the idea is journey A to B, which adds also some logistical challenges. So, but actually means you're on a bit of a journey, and a bit like the Tour de France in the cycling. Sometimes you might have to do a bit of a transfer from A to B, or you might start slightly differently from where you finish. But the concept is try and go A to B. So that gives us a bit of a framework of what we're trying to do within the geography and the conditions in there. And then the idea is, we've worked very carefully on this. The idea is to build up towards the 10k plus day 3. So day 3 is always the idea that you're nailing a marathon swim. And we actually have that also possible to do under the, if you like, the traditional rules. So MSF rules where you have nothing, no electronics, no just a hat, goggles and things. So we did that this year with 20 of the swimmers did it under those rules. But that's day 3. So to build up to that, on the first day, not everyone loves this, but on the first day we split 8 or 9K into 2 swims with a pause of anything from half an hour for the slowest swimmer, which is much tougher for on that day, up to perhaps an hour and a half, or for the fastest swimmer, where they get a second breakfast. So we're starting super early every day, sunrise start, for the weather, for the boat traffic, and also because we have a huge percentage of people, and even more next year, bringing partners, non-swimming partners, and we want everything to finish after lunch. So there is actually still the rest of the day to either recover or enjoy with their non-swimming partner. So that's part of the package that we really built in from the beginning. So that first day is 2 split swims, 4 or 5. This in Montenegro was a 4K pause and a 5K. Second day we tried to build up the single distance. So this year we did 7.8K in Montenegro as the swim, and that was a big coastal swim around under the cliffs and things. And then we had lunch, and then we followed it with an untimed swim around the island that we were having lunch on. So there's some elements untimed where you still got to do it to get to 33.3, but it's a bit of a swim down, or it's a bit more relaxing where you're able to swim with your friends. And you've got to do it in a certain time, but there's no timing such, so it's a bit kind of a lower stress. So we did that on day 2, and then day 3 is the big one. We did 10.5 K this year in Montenegro as the marathon swim. And then the final day, in both events so far, build it as it's a lot easier. It is a lot easier. Theoretically, it's whatever we need to do to get to 33,
right,
as a minimum. So the minimum it could have been this year was, I think, 3.8. In fact, I think we did 4.3, but we also had a channel crossing country to country, Croatia to Montenegro, which people love channel crossing, country and channel crossing. So it's complicated to organize again, but we added that in as the final swim, and they ended up not in any way forecast. It should have been with the tide and no wind. It was against the tide and into the wind. So a very tough 2K channel crossing, and then a really beautiful with the current swim into the finish line. But it ended up tougher both years now. The last days ended up tougher than was planned, let's say, but actually it was a great way to finish. People have to push that a little bit harder, and they even more sense of achievement on the finish line. So you can't plan all of those things. You can't plan the tide. I mean, you can plan the tide, but in Montenegro, for example, it never does what it's meant to do anyway. So there's a certain element of having to live with it. That's why we call it off-road a little bit. It's not seeking perfect conditions. You have to be ready for whatever's going to come at you, whether that's the sea state, the wind state, the direction of the sun. Can't always make it, avoiding the sun in your eyes. But then we're wrapping it with a huge setup of kayaks, boats, safety, and everything else. So we're the safety side is obviously super important. We're not 1-to-1 ratio kayak to swimmer, but we have, we had a 4-to-1 kayak ratio, kayak to number of swimmers ratio, plus 12 boats on the course this year. Plus we're trialing, it's a company that I'm a small investor in and advisor to, called Insiders, trialing tracking devices on all the swimmers. So we actually had live tracking of all of the assets, all of the kayaks, all of the boats, all of the swimmers for all of the swims, with a way to use that from managing distance from swimmers from kayaks, alerts when there wasn't a kayak within 50 meters, for example. So that's a product I'm trying to develop, and then hopefully take to the rest of the sport as a big safety enhancement. So, but yeah, lots going on there. But the whole idea of the swimming is to build up, nail the marathon, and then enjoy the final day. It's a bit the concept of it.
Right. And so when people go along on this trip, they all stay together at the same place and eat meals together. Is that the way you structure it?
Well, they're eating in Montenegro. It's different in different places because one obviously big constraint is finding a place that is. We're trying to do a long weekend format. Some people come for more time either side, but we're trying to do it so you could leave work on a Thursday morning and be back at work. If you're in an event in Europe for a European, clearly it's not the case for coming from the other side of the world, but and then be back at work on the Monday night or back at home on the Monday night. So that means you can't just go anywhere you want. You can't go to the most extreme swimming destinations either, because you need a hotel base. In the case of Montenegro, everyone, at least next year, will be all in the same hotel. So we're all having breakfast together, and we're all having lunch together, because that's at the finish line. So we do like a refuel lunch at the finish line in a different destination each day. Dinner, we leave people to do their own thing. We also want to help the local tourists, and people go out to restaurants and go to different places. So that format will be consistent. I'm trying to be really consistent between the events. In Croatia, our next event, there isn't one hotel, so there's going to 2 or 3 hotels all very close to each other. But people spend a lot of time together because we're going, our restart, say where we finished the previous day, we're going by boat as much as we can, trying to avoid any kind of land transfer. So people are on the boats together. It's quite a moment. The sun's coming up. Most people, it's a bit early, got up early, and everyone's anxious. A lot of people are anxious thinking about the swim that's coming up. It's quite a moment though. So, and people spend that time together, which is quite quality as well. And they spend the time after the swim, and they spend lunch together. So they have plenty of time together. That's what works. It's just bonding between people. We have a couple of levels. You have 3 package levels actually. So we call them Ultra, Ultra Plus, and Ultra Plus Plus. And that does determine at least the hotel or the rooms in the hotel and a lot of the extras. I mean, we're trying to make a premium product, but making it accessible for those that don't have the budget to enter at that level. So we are trying to create a product which is potentially more expensive. I mean, there's no comparison to really, other than the Morocco event. But we're not trying to do the cheapest event, to be honest. We can't have thousands of swimmers. Our limit this year will be 200. In 2024 will be 200 per event. But we are trying to do it with lots of services. So we had, for example, the Ultra Plus, which is our main package, includes post-swim massage, stroke clinic, one-to-one video in case of Montenegro with Paul Newsom from Swim Smooth in Perth, doing one-to-one videos. We're trying to send swimmers, people back as better swimmers, whatever better means to different people. We're, the quality of the food, the quality of the deliverables. The Ultra Plus get private transfers from the airport. Basically, anyone that enters, we take care of once they arrive at an airport. Depending on the events and differences, but we're trying to do the whole thing for them. The whole aim is that people concentrate on swimming and enjoying it, and all the rest is as if they were a pro, is looked after. We've got physio on site, we've got massage team on site, we've got mentors, we've got people lots of experience, we've got ambassadors. We're doing talks every evening with some of the people that have done record holders and Andy and other people. So we just try to wrap it in a premium wrapper. We're not staying in 2-star hotels, we're staying in 4 or 5-star hotels, but with an option to share and keep the cost down for those that need to keep the cost down. So that in the essence is it. We're trying to do a premium event. We want to attract the premium end. We want to develop that side of it. We want to show it's worth paying a bit more for a really amazing experience. But equally, there's always an accessible way in to keep it as open as we possibly can.
Yeah. And you mentioned just before that you've been getting a lot of feedback from the swimmers that went. And what do you sort of see as the major sort of challenges that you had from this one that you're going to change in the next event in Croatia?
I mean, what's nice to say is that the list is not massive. So I mean, we already did a test event. We should explain, this was the first, let's call it at scale event, but we did a test event. It cost me, it was a big investment to do because we basically ran it like a big event, but with 25 paying swimmers just over a year ago. And that allowed us to learn a lot of the lessons that we knew we would needed to learn before putting it at scale, in terms of, the timing, the logistics, the boats on the water, the transfers, the safety, the everything else. So we didn't, it went extremely well. It'd be hard to follow what we just did actually, because it really, really went well. The list is not that long, but there's always things to improve. There's no one big thing that we need to change. I think we really nailed it on this second event. But we had perfect weather. We had good weather. It looked like perfect weather from the swimmer's perspective. We actually had one morning 35, 40 knots of wind, 6 a.m. and all the kayakers refused to go in the water. So we almost had to call the day off. So coaxed them onto the water in the end and towed them to the start line, and which was through a cave. The actual start line went through a cave from one side to the other. So plenty of challenges like that. But actually, from the swimmer's perspective, I don't think we were not so many things that went wrong. We're in the detail on trying to handle the different dietary requirements at lunch, and which we did, but it's not that easy to do all those things. So some of those things we need to improve. But no, overall, I think we really, right now, the product was right. After that, each venue will have different challenges. The weather will throw different challenges at us. we could always improve the safety side. I think we did a benchmark job on the safety, to be honest, in terms of, but there's always things to improve on that. There's tracking technology and drones and things as additional safety aspects is things that we'll develop a lot for the next event in May in Croatia. And then Croatia will throw different challenges at us. Croatia is May, which in Europe is a very early season, and the water temperature will probably be more like 17, 18, 19 if we've had a few weeks of sun beforehand. Whereas Montenegro was sort of 21-ish last year and 22, 23-ish this year. So we didn't have many people pulling out the swims because of the cold, whereas I suspect we'll have a lot more in Croatia. So we need to preempt that and be ready for that. There's always things, nutrition. We did a great partnership with Precision Hydration, who are a super company to work with, and they provide all the nutrition side of things. We learned a bit about what we want where, gels versus and recovery drinks and different things. So lots of details. I mean, the feedback is we go through a thing called Race Check, which is a bit like kind of Trustpilot or TripAdvisor for sport events. So it's very all public, and people they rate it, and got a great rating. And of course, everyone's always got some comments and things to add, which is great. I mean, that's been we want that feedback. So there's a long list of things to do, but not necessarily a long list of big things to rethink. There aren't any big things to rethink. It's about trying to repeat the same consistency and across the events, which is the idea. The idea is to build this to a series of at least 5 events through the year, potentially to 8. The idea is to do definitely 2 next year, potentially 3, according to how we go with filling out the first 2 in the next couple of months. But it doesn't add up financially, to be honest, to even get close to break even without getting to 5 events, 5 times 200 swimmers. You can't, it doesn't pay its way one event by event in terms of the year-long costs we've got. So it's a work in progress. I'm not doing it for any financial reason. It'd be nuts to do it for financial reason, to be honest. I've spent 20 years in events. You spend quite a few years building it, and in that time it's very hard to cover your costs. You're building, you keep reinvesting, and but I'm building it as a long-term for it to become sustainable. Whether it's me that's running it in 5 years time or 10 years time, probably not, but that that's what I'm trying to do, the bit at the beginning and get it going and prove the concept. But genuinely on the finish line of this event, I mean, Simon Griffiths, from Outdoor Swimmer magazine, I don't know if you know Simon, but he's a bit of an encyclopedia of everything in open water swimming, and he did a little interview with him on the beach, and as I said to him, at some point I'm not looking at the numbers, the emotional payback, the currency of impacting people's lives sounds overstate it like that, but genuinely, if you be there, you'd see it and feel it. And that for me is the only reason. That's what I've done for 20 years in sport, is try and do things that were in one way either managing athletes that are inspiring lots of millions of people through media and everything else, or helping or facilitating people with a sporting platform to go and extend themselves and go home a better person in some way. And that's what I love, and that's what we definitely are. I've got a formula that can do that. We now need to finesse it, make it viable financially, and offer it to more people.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, share with us some of the sort of highlight stories that you came across with the swimmers that came there. Like, what sort of things did they tell you that they discovered about themselves?
I mean, there's a number of people who have suffered loss, post close personal loss, and this event was hard enough for them, challenge them to sign on to, that having nailed it is like the turning point. I mean, there's a lady had lost her husband, lost their brother, in all those cases they promised their departing partner that they would take something on or do the swim. There's a lady that she was ready to share a story. It's on a newsletter we just put out, called Davina, who drowned or nearly lost her life when she was a kid, and for 30 years afraid to go in the water, and she nailed this entire swim.
It's amazing.
It was it. I've drawn the line. And she said, "This is it. I've drawn the line. That's history now. What happened to me? I'm on the other side of that line." So I think that's it's just a swim race on the one hand, but it's so much more than a race like that. And there are lots of people who haven't had those traumas. I had a lovely email from a guy guy called Ilani from South Africa yesterday. He said, look, I'm not someone who's had any kind of big life trauma. I've been really lucky, but I'm really emotional writing this, and list all the things that what it done and what it given to him. And just in terms of, he pushed himself, he was out of his comfort zone. He managed to nail it, partly with the force of the group and people encouraging each other, or drafting behind someone, or working with each other, or a lot of people have never done that before as well, and get themselves to the finish line, and that just so rewarding for people coming back buzzing. And on a personal front, that's what I've done my whole life. I've set myself I've not done anything particularly extreme or anything, but set myself goals, and I've always come back super confident in myself, and that kind of has lasted for 6 months, a year, kind of just in general life, and the way you approach general life. And I think that's so lots and lots of those different lots of those different stories. People with mobility issues that there aren't many events they can do and feel equal, and the fact that we're horizontal in the water with gravity neutralized is amazing, because it just levels the playing field. Of course, the people right at the front racing, there's maybe 10-15 people really trying to win across the finish line, but that's great, and everyone admires what they're doing. But actually, in the rest of it, you've just got all this different mix of people, and you don't have to look. There's not one form person that's swimming better. And that's a great thing about swimming, through the lack of gravity and through the fact that technique is an important part of it, and how you train and everything else. So it's and I love that about it, and it's so diverse. And again, that's one of the comments that came back all the time, is the diversity and inclusion, and the mix of people. Yet everybody's in the water, not equal in the sporting terms, at all sorts of different levels, but equal in terms of approach and equal in terms of importance. So, and it's a hard balance, to be honest. Had some criticism from one guy, not putting enough emphasis on the people that are winning. Well, yeah, I mean, they're the winners still. They're the people on the podium. But actually, for me, there were winners at the back as well, and winners. The last person across the line was a winner. The last person to cross the line on the first day is a guy called Moritz. He's quite a well-known German composer. I think he composed the music of the 2006 World Football World Cup. Right. Super guy. He's never done open water swim ever. He was a trail runner, ultra distance runner, as well as being a music composer. And he's hurt his ankle 6 months before the event, earlier this year, and his trainer or physio said, you need to try swimming. And he did. And his first question, he laughs about it, we all laugh about it now, but his first question on the chat forum when he first entered, like 5 months ago, was, what strokes do people swim in this? Do you do side strokes sometimes? Give yourself a break. And of course, a few people, so that was funny. Some people said, well, this guy surely shouldn't be doing the event. So you just watch this guy. I knew his background, and I knew in terms of other sports and stuff. So he finished inside the cutoff on the first day, last. And each day, through either the coaching, through the mentors, through people helping him, through little tips, he progressed. And I think there was 20 people behind him on the final day. Right. And we gave him the progression, award at the prize giving. And the guy, super guy, smiles and just, loving the whole thing. Ripped raw with rash, because he, despite the advice we're given, despite the briefings, we do webinars in the months before. We're trying to share our knowledge. We're really trying to be involved in the whole journey for the people that want it. Some people, of course, they enter, don't want to hear from us. Absolutely fine. They're going to arrive, do their thing, and that's great as well. But the people that want to really be on a journey for the months before, we're doing the webinars. We have a swimmer chat group. We have a broadcast chat group that we send out key information to, but there's a chat group that people share, and it's probably about half the swimmers jump in and dive in, and you don't have to be there on it. But and then the webinars where we're trying to share this information. Moritz, this guy hadn't really caught the thing about the friction and rash and stuff that, you can do an hour swimming, it's not an issue, but doing our swim gets to be quite an issue, because the next day you're back out there at the same point. And he's red raw. I mean, dangerously raw in some ways. So, but he made it through it and loved it. Loved every bit of it. So it's and that's just this huge diversity. And he'll go on and he'll swim. It's a guy who's super fit. He'll end up in the mid, halfway up the fleet next time he does one. So and I think most people will come back. Almost all of the test swimmers from 2022 came back already to this event in 2023, and they're all the entries for next year. That most of them are signing up again. So it's a good sign. The challenge for us will be not necessarily all the things to improve. The challenge will be to keep that feel and manage the logistics with the kind of Swiss timing that we try to apply this time with more swimmers, because still going from 120 swimmers we were in Montenegro recently, we need to be near 160 to 200. So, and without losing, I don't think we'll lose the family feel and the connections, because I think that will just be just as good. But trying to keep the logistics sorted is will be a challenge. But we know what we've got to do. We've got to find the right solutions for that. Going beyond 200, I think, is probably pretty tricky. So, and we'll then potentially put in at risk the concept itself. But place by place, venue by venue, the constraints are different.
Yeah. Do you help the people that have entered the event with any training schedule, workouts and things beforehand?
Absolutely. I mean, interestingly, I think it's about a third of the people don't swim in a pool. So it's probably quite strange for Australians, because you've got the ocean, you've got the pool, and you've got nasty things in the ocean as well. So it's quite nice to swim in the pool sometimes.
Yes.
Lots of countries where it's very difficult to get that pool time. And there are people capable of doing the event that are not going and doing some kind of defined training plan in a pool. So that's an element. There's another third that already have a coach or a training plan or a club they squad, whatever. And then there's a third who don't have any of that, but are willing to do whatever it takes to have a chance of finishing the event. So for that third, for this year we worked with Paul at Swim Smooth. He's got a great thing called Swim Smooth Guru, which is a great digital training plan, which he tuned to focus in on the event and count down towards the event. And that's what I follow personally as a swimmer in my own training, following his routines, and it's very aimed at endurance, masters endurance swimming. It's not telling people to do butterfly length or an IM or something else. So it's very, very good. Hopefully we'll be able to continue with him on that going forward. And along with Paul and equally other coaches on webinars and other people, lots of experience, are sharing that experience. I mean, there's a training plan which is in the water and in the pool and doing those things, but also, as we know, there's a lot more to the open water coaching, if you like, in terms of there's a lot of mental side. Jay was amazing on that front, actually. So I don't know if Jay was with Andy when you did the podcast with Andy.
No, he wasn't. No.
But he's a great kind of mentor. He's really supported Andy on his record attempts, and he's a great mentor, and hoping to work with Jay going forward as well as a mentor. A lot of people nervous in the countdown, actually made nervous by people recording their training sessions in the pool.
Right.
So, well, I'm not sure if we had 5 people, so I think perhaps more over the whole period of 6 months. But so I'm hesitating whether I should really come to the event. I'm a bit freaked by the times this guy's doing and publishing them on the chat in the pool. 10 400s, and he's swimming at twice the speed I'm swimming. To really reassure people, so we need to be careful of the balance of that in terms of the information we put out anyway, and to show people that as people saw when they got to the event, it's okay to be swimming 2.5K an hour and finish an hour behind the swimmers at the front. That's fine. It's part of the event. It's not a problem. But that made quite a few people anxious. So there's a bit of a balance on there. But the training plan is, it's training plan, it's mentoring, it's webinars, it's information, it's sharing the stories from the previous event. We have a whole bunch of ambassador swimmers who new swimmers coming into it can we connect them with, and they can talk to them. So unlike Ironman or other things where you're kind of left on your own, and you'll find your community groups, you'll find one way your thing. We really want to accompany people from the minute they enter to the start, and obviously through to the finish. So training plans and all the other aspects of it, there's a lot of aspects there. So and the partners we have will continue to try and grow to help us with that precision. There's a great nutrition partner, because also you free consultation with them, so you can just do a Zoom call with them, and they'll explain or talk to you about nutrition and everything else for free. It's part of just you don't have to buy their product initially to get it. You just they're a great brand. They're all out in Kona right now. I have been for the last weekend, obviously for Ironman, but and so the partners can help us enhance that side of things as well.
Yeah. And do you see the future? I know you've got Croatia coming up, but do you see all the future events in and around Europe, or are you looking?
No, it's not possible actually.
Worldwide.
No, I need to go worldwide because there's only, you can't really run. There are very few places you could run an event in Europe in July and August, just because there's no hotel that's that interested in having you. In fact, July, August, September now. September's become kind of high season in most places for those that don't have kids, and it's very hard to run any event anywhere in those. It's only 2 and potentially 3 months. So the months you can run events, May and the beginning of June, and then the end of September and October, there's not enough space to do 5 events even. So coupled with that, you need a hotel that really wants you, and boat traffic. Boat traffic in most of these places is just unmanageable. There's always boat traffic and it's always an issue to manage, but some months are too hard. So we need to go elsewhere. And in any case, we want it to be, we started in Europe, we're Europe based, but our clients are already from all over the world. And we have Australians, New Zealanders, Singapore, Brazilians, Canadians, Americans. This in an event already out in 120 swimmers. So equally, we want to be able to put events on in other parts of the world that allow us to be in the European winter, but equally mean that people are not always traveling right the way across the world. Just from a carbon footprint point of view, we need to have a series of events where the percentage of people we're attracting are not coming from so far away, yet the event is the same consistent package, albeit in different venues with different backdrops and different water temperatures and different challenges. But so no, we definitely go worldwide. The next step is 3 events in Europe next year. So 2 we've announced, 3rd we will announce if we as long as we sell out these first 2, which looks like we will quickly, and then the following year perhaps a 4th one in Europe. It would be a cold water one, let's say, so not trying to be in somewhere warm and sunny particularly, so a bit more extreme possibly, and then event 5 and 6 would be in the European winter somewhere, whether that's Central South America, Asia, Pacific, could be there's a bunch of things. But obviously the further we go from here, from an organization point of view, it starts to get more complicated, and not looking to franchise it. So there's Ocean Man, which is the only brand really in one-day events that's going around the world, and Ferman's done a great job, the guy that's creating that brand, one day swim event all over the world, but it's a franchise. And this event is too complex for me to believe that we could just franchise it and deliver the quality, safety experience. So for now, I've got it's us organising it. So that's a bit of a constraint on how many events a long way from home do we put in place. But that's all about finding the right local partners, and from that point of view. So I'm quite likely to end up in venues, not always the venue we want to go to, but it's the venue where we found the right person we can trust and work with on the ground. This is as important as anything else. So in Montenegro, we have a fantastic lady called Hayley who is British originally, but has lived in Montenegro for 16 years, and is local as far as local could be, and that's key and fundamental in making this kind of event happen. You've got 100 problems to solve every day, and a lot of them are local problems, so local based problems. So you need that person. That's quite a big dictator of where we could go. I think New Zealand, I'd love to do one in New Zealand. I actually spent a lot of time in New Zealand, so I'd love to do something down under. Australia, I think you've got plenty of options and plenty of amazing events there already. And obviously the in-water challenges there are one level up as well in terms of managing other risks that exist everywhere, but perhaps a bit more there. So I hadn't imagined trying to do one in Australia at this point, but I've had some approaches on that front. But Pacific, for example, I know is a good, Fiji and these places, there's some great events going on already out there. Could be an interesting destination for us that fits in terms of the calendar of the year. So it's open, and we've got cities approaching us, actually starting to bid for it and want it. It's a great, again, the one-day events are fantastic, but one-day events bring in a lot of people for a short period of time. The multi-day event bring in quality people who are there for a period of time, super active people. And for the profile, for example, in Croatia, VAR, VAR Island, place we've gone, has grown a reputation as a bit of a young people's party town, and it's absolutely trying to address that and stop that, so it doesn't become an Ibiza or whatever. And actually our older active on average, older active, and we had from a 15-year-old to a 71-year-old at the event in Montenegro, but our average is nonetheless 40 to 50. age, active, disposable income, wanting to enjoy the place, sporty, that fits the target for many of these destinations. So we have venues that are coming to us already. And swimming, from an imagery point of view, again, if you do almost all swimming events, 10Ks go around loops, right? You don't see much, you see the same thing. Because we're doing point to point, we're showing off the way that cycling does, for example. We're showing off the place, 33 kilometers of different backdrop and different scenery, and going to places that lots of people can't even get to as well, which is just in terms of showing the imagery of places. We have a TV production thing inside in place. We have some we're in 30 odd channels with a 5-minute mini documentary. We're just starting it, but that's, that will go out in the next few weeks. So we're trying to build a proper sports event, but make it very much, pro-am or amateur event and very accessible, but grow a professional sporting event at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been lovely hearing all about the UltraSwim 33.3, and good luck with the next event coming up in Croatia, and we'll be following your progress.
That's great. Well, I hope you're going to come and do it, right?
I don't know about that.
I never let go.
It's a little bit far for me.
No, that one of my best friends, Matt, did the test event, and he did this year. He'd never swum more than 3 kilometers in a one go ever in his life before he did the event. So if you can get to 2 or 3Ks, psychology, 3 times multiple, and then the multi-day bit is what it is. Everyone has to struggle push through that. So we'll see you there. We'll see you now. You have your invitation anyway.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I can make 10K, but
well, there you go.
I don't know.
Well, you're all good. You're all good. You're way ahead of most of the people. We look forward to seeing you somewhere.
We'll see. Okay, take care.
All right, take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.